Welcome to Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and just like any other time, we have another amazing show lineup for y'all today. We have a true honor. We have a great pleasure talking to our guest, who is the name G. Michael Hoff. He is a USA Today bestselling author whose incredible life journey has clearly shaped his compelling narratives, from his service as a United States Marine combat veteran to his experiences as a bodyguard and commercial diver. Mr. Hoff brings a unique depth and realism to his work. When it comes to being a devoted father and husband, he has channeled his diverse background into a successful writing career. So we're going to have a great time talking about, you talking about making a big change from military to being a writer and just making it happen. He has a lot of books. You think it's just one or two? Nah, it's like a series of many. So if you go to gmichaelhoff.com, you'll be able to get a little taste of all the amazing work he's been doing in his writing phase. So first and foremost, man, I want to say to you, Mr. G, if I can call you that, thank you for your time, man. How you doing?
I'm doing really good. Thank you for having me on. And the G stands for Jeff, so feel free to call me Jeff. The G. Michael Hoff is a pen name I adopted because the very, very first book I'd written was a children's illustrated book. And I did that under Jeffrey Hoff, and that was kind of a legacy project I did for my girls. And then that was really the first book that kind of showed me I could have an idea and have it manifest by just consistent effort and discipline. And then from there, I launched all of my novels, and I thought I needed kind of change the name up because I didn't want kind of this kind of raw, kind of intense, kind of apocalyptic fiction that kind of didn't seem to match up with the children's illustrated books. And I thought I would do more, but I ended up not doing it. But so I went with G. Michael Hoff. That would be the pen name I would use for all my novels. So that's the G. It stands for Jeff. So feel free to call me Jeff.
I appreciate that, man. I'm going to call you Mr. Hoff if you don't mind. But when you think about the diverse experiences that you've been able to have, particularly the United States Marine Corps, want to say right away, thank you for your service, man. When it comes to that directly influencing some of the ways you write, kind of touch on how maybe parts of your career has influenced how you decide to write your books.
Well, I first want to, people ask me, they always thank me for my service, and thank you for doing that. But I also just want to thank the country for allowing me to serve. And I genuinely mean that. I know we're not a perfect nation. I don't think no nation is, but I think we're doing pretty good here for the most part. We can always be striving to be better, of course. But I'm very grateful to my country for allowing me to serve. As far as my military background and how it helped my writing, it's important for writers, I think, to write from what you know. It makes it much easier to do that. And so I pull, when you look at apocalyptic fiction and things that have kind of gritty action and kind of the technical expertise of weaponry and tactics and things like that, I definitely pull from that. I also pull just from the standard grit that people in the service have. There's just a disciplined mindset that falls into those people, because it is quite remarkable in many ways. And I think it gets overlooked a lot, where you have very young people that are given tremendous responsibility. We're talking very young. And like when I was in the Marine Corps, here I am as a corporal, then eventually a sergeant, and I'm in my early 20s, and I'm leading a squad of young men in the infantry. And you're making decisions that are literally life and death. You're putting the life and death of other people in your hands at such a very young age. And the military does that across all branches. And I have to really give a big shout out for that. And again, I think it's overlooked quite a bit. What we ask of these young men and women to do at such a young age. And so, but going back to that, I definitely have pulled from my military experience and the deployments that I did overseas. And that really is in a lot of the books. And I do pay homage to pretty much all the books I've written. There's usually some military element, specifically Marines, in it.
Beyond the action and the adventure in your books, often we always have the plot twist that is like, man, what's going to happen next? You have a great talent when it comes to just keeping us on the edge, so to speak. How do you do research and also integrate these complex, even political dynamics in your fiction?
As far as the plot, I like deep, kind of complicated plots, but mainly because I want the reader to give a good, I want them to have a world that they understand what's happening. Some writers want to keep it very simple. So, like if I look at my very first novel, The End, and in fact, the entire series, I have multiple point of views so that you have this event, which is a super EMP, is detonated over North America. So, but I want the reader to have a true understanding of what's happening around North America and around the world. So I give them characters, not just a family that's in a kind of a suburban area, but then there's also a character that's in the military. So the reader has an idea of what's happening there. And then also there's a point of view character, main character is also in the government. So you're seeing all these different POVs and you're getting a real world understanding of what happens in a kind of global event that would be, say, a super EMP detonated over the continent, and then the subsequent grid collapse that would come from that. I think it's important. I like world building, so I like that as being an author, and I think it's important to give the readers just a lot to kind of chew on and feel. But as far as a grittiness and realism, I do spend time researching things that say I'm not familiar with, and so I have a good understanding. And I've gotten a reputation for having my technical expertise as far as when it comes to, say, like a super EMP or EMP weapon, exactly what does it do? How does it affect, the grid? How does it affect electronic components, circuitry, and things like that? Because I want it to be as real as possible. So most of my books are what they call reality-based apocalyptic books versus kind of more your, science fiction based zombie things like that. Those are great for entertainment, and I enjoy a good zombie apoc book or show anytime too. But I wanted mine to be kind of, what if this actually happened? One, there's probability there this event could happen, and two, what happens and what should you do, or what can we foresee happens to society as it slowly breaks down when a large scale kind of continental event occurs.
Once again, listen to Refocused Radio and watching us online, talking to our guest today, USA Today bestselling author and United States Marine Corps veteran, G. Michael Hoff. Go to his website, gmichaelhoff.com. I'm telling you, tons of books. He has different series, multiple series, so you have a lot of time to entertain yourself. My next question for you, sir, is when you, as a writer, you're known to describe yourself modestly as just a guy stringing words along. When you believe in the creativity approach of making this still entertaining, right? I mean, that's what keeps people holding the book. How do you develop those techniques, if you will, stringing those words together, still in a creative flow, but also thought-provoking story?
That's a great question. And I think it's important, with intention, kind of a mindset of intention. What am I doing? And I think all writers should approach that. One, I think it's important for the writer to write the book that you as an individual want to read yourself. Then you stay true to that. You kind of get outside of yourself too much when you're trying to write for other people, and you're never going to make everybody happy. And so write the book that you want to read, and there is an audience for that. I don't know how big it will be, but there is an audience for whatever you're writing. But I do think my job really is just to be a storyteller. I'm not here to win awards. I'm not here to win prizes, literary prizes. I just wanted first and foremost to entertain people. That's the thing. That's what novels are supposed to do. Yeah, you can drive messages in the words and get people to take something from that. I think, by the way, fiction is the best way to drive a message, by the way, more than, say, nonfiction books. And that's because of the emotional connection that the reader gets with the character as they're dealing with something, and they can really pull that in. But my job, I think, is just to entertain people. I want people to have escapism, to kind of, when they sit down after a long day or at work or whatever they're doing, and they just pick up a book and they just escape into another world. And that's, again, my main purpose and my main intention is just to entertain people. As far as having the flow, how I write, I'm not a guy who has like complex outlines. Not completely opposed to outlines, but I'm not an outline guy. I'll take heavy notes before I start writing a book, but I allow the kind of flow to come, kind of organic writing, and that requires to be uninterrupted, sitting down with the story kind of playing in your head, kind of knowing, almost like I see it like a movie in my head, and then I just sit there and I just start writing, and eventually you kind of kick into this flow state. And once the flow state comes, you'll have characters and situations and events that are happening in the book that you never could have plotted when you're thinking about it analytically and when you're doing an outline. It's kind of a left brain, right brain thing. And so the creative thing just comes from kind of immersing yourself in the story and just keep writing and writing, and eventually it clicks, and then you're just flowing. But again, I think stick to just being a storyteller. That's what authors are. Tell the story first. That's what, as far as perfection with grammar and typos, that's what editors are for. You get those people to come in and polish your work. The main job of an author is to be the storyteller. Left brain, right brain thing.
And speaking of characters, I want to talk about how you develop your characters, because also with your military background, you have encountered, I just can only imagine, different experiences and human interactions in different places all over the world. How has that also contributed to how you develop these characters once they spark in your mind?
Yeah, characters, I think a lot of authors do that. We just pull from people we've known or met over the years. And some people will just be a straight up, like one character could be somebody that you've known in your past, and they're literally a carbon copy of that person's personality. You're putting them there. Some characters are just kind of an amalgamation of different personalities and little traits and little mannerisms and things like that, that I just take from the world that's right in front of me. Like I'll be out somewhere and people are over and I see someone playing with their hair. Or I'll see somebody do things like a mannerism. I'm like, that's interesting. I'm going to have my character do that. So I don't try to make things up. I pull from my own experiences or pull from the world in front of me and take that information in and then put it into the characters.
Your books, your series, they are different. They're not just one same type of style, because beyond your New World series, you also write Westerns. What appeals to you about the Western genre, and how do you find the experience of transitioning between writing from the New World series and when it's all about survival to more traditional Western?
Well, I was getting a little I'd written so many books to date. I've written 40 books to date. And I had written quite a few apocalyptic books, and I was just kind of wanting a little bit of a shift. And believe it or not, it can be risky for an author to do what they call genre jumping. But Westerns they're kind of an adjacent genre in many ways. One, I think the Wild West is an intriguing time period in American history. It's very Americana, but it's just an interesting time period, even just in world history, just how the West was won, and just the concept of a frontier and people out there and all the things and dynamics that were playing out. I just have always been fascinated by it. I like from the history of it and things like that. And so when I jumped over to it, I had to do a lot more research to make sure, again, I pride myself on being technically accurate. So I really had to do a lot of research into weaponry and things like that. Now I have shot a lot of firearms in my life and have been a shooter ever since I was young. And so I had tinkered with, black powder pistols and kind of older Colt and different kinds of lever action rifles and things like that. So I had some experience already, but I did have to do a lot more research, specifically time periods, because there is like this evolution of firearms too. When you go from the cap and ball kind of all the way to where they're actually having cartridges and things like that. So to making sure that that's accurate. But the Westerns, the kind of concept of survival is even in the West. So that kind of human condition where people are trying to survive, there's a lot of similarities there, right? I just wanted to make sure that I got the situations accurate, because there's a lot of things happening politically and just culturally that are happening in the Wild West that I wanted to get accurate. So again, that took a lot more research and understanding what was a state, what wasn't a state, was it a territory, what was our interactions with the native tribes and First Peoples at the time, and all these things to make sure everything is accurate. But it was actually quite a lot of fun to write. I kept the stories fairly simplistic as far as kind of writing in a formula. I was a big reader when I was in the Marine Corps of Louis L'Amour and Zane Grey. Those authors are big Western, classical Western. And so I kind of was inspired by them and just kind of incorporated some of their style. But I wanted to make the protagonist more anti-hero. So these were the hero, but yet these were these were men or women that were not necessarily the best people. They were good people, but sometimes doing bad things, if that makes sense. And some were just bad people that end up having this kind of redemption story where they went from being bad to now they're being put into a situation. Now I should be good. So there's, it was just a lot of fun to write, a lot of fun. And I actually, surprisingly, the books did really, really, really well. They were really well received by the Western uh, people that are really into
Yeah, I
Westerns.
mean, you really took the words out of my thoughts. That's exactly what I thought about redemption, and I think that's a powerful tool. Earlier in our conversation, you touched on storytelling. So when you think about being an established writer now, and people are supporting your work, and you have 40 plus books out there, I mean, man, that takes a lot of effort, time, and organizing to actually make that happen. So when you look at writers today, maybe the younger writers, maybe not the established ones, but the ones who are dreaming about getting their stuff out there professionally, what's some of the skill sets that you develop over time and how you prepare yourself mentally to get your books published? Because it's one thing to get it written and get it edited, but it's a whole different world when it comes to marketing yourself and putting yourself out there in the world.
Those are great questions, and I will say, if someone wants to get, I'll kind of give a not too long of an answer, but I thoroughly answer because these are great questions. I think if someone's a new writer out there, my best advice for them is be the same advice that Ernest Hemingway gave new writers. That is just right. Don't overcomplicate it. Not to say that you shouldn't go out and seek knowledge and seek to better your craft as a writer, but don't put obstacles in your way. Like, I have this great idea for a novel, but I'm going to wait till I graduate with a creative writing degree 3 years later. I wouldn't do that. Not to say you should drop out of school, not to say you should take that creative writing class, but you should, if you've got an idea and it's been brewing in your head for the longest time, just sit in front of a computer or whatever and just start writing it now, and get it all on the page. Because when you're doing a rough draft, that's the time to get everything on the page anyway. Just throw it all on the page, because there's plenty of time when you're done to go back. You'll do rewrites, and then you'll introduce an editor to the process. And it's a lot of heavy lifting when you're doing that. Um, to kind of then go back into the writing, if you're getting into writing, you also have to think of it that it's a business, and that's how I structured it in my mind. I had this mentality when I was first writing the book that I never said I wanted to be a writer. I just said, I am a writer. I am an author, even before I'd published it. And that mindset, it's a mindset that then everything I did is like, what do authors do? Authors write. And so authors write every day. That's kind of what I put. And I used discipline and consistency and kind of the consistency of labor together. And then I made writing, before I actually became a professional writer, I made it like my second job. Like I would kind of have this hours at night when everyone's asleep to sit down, and I dedicated to getting so many words done a night. And if you do that through, like, again, it takes discipline. You can have all the motivation in the world, but it takes discipline, because there's times you just don't want to do it. So it takes discipline, and then you just put the consistency of labor on it, and then you do 2,000 words a day. I mean, in a month you have 60,000 words. In 2 months you have 100. You've got a novel now, or a book. And so take yourself serious. Don't treat it like a hobby, because if you're going to put that kind of time and effort, you should respect your time. And therefore, treat it with the respect that I'm going to treat this like a job. I want this to be successful. I want this to sell. I want this to even make a lot of money. I know I've run into authors, or I call them the starving artists, and they'll say, "Well, I don't really care if it sells," or "I don't care if I make money." That's what I hear. And I go, "Well, you should, because money is a direct relation to whether it's been successful or sold or not." Now, what you do with your money is a whole other thing. If you sell a bunch and then you can make a bunch of money, you give it away, great. But if you're making a bunch of money, that means you've sold a lot of books. And that's the purpose of writing the book. You want it to touch the world. You want as many people as possible to read it. Otherwise, what's the point? And so respect yourself, respect your time. and respect the story that you're writing, that you want it to touch the world. So give it the respect of treating it. So once you're done with the book, the next thing before publishing, you have to make sure that you get it professionally edited. You cannot self-edit. It's impossible. Your mind will just look over words. So make sure you do all the things that aren't going to hinder it or harm it once you do publish it. That's professionally edit it, professionally format it, have people read it, to look for it, and make sure it flows and looks good. Get a great looking cover for it. Again, it's something you're putting on. You want them to look beautiful. First impressions count. And then when you get to the marketing standpoint, you've got to be so proud of your book. You're wanting to, share it with the world. And there's two ways of doing it. You can self-publish, or you can find a publisher. Getting a publisher is very difficult these days. In fact, it's always been difficult, but there's so many ways of self-publishing now. In fact, it's been democratized in many ways. So you can get your words out to the world. But if you're going to do that, make sure it's technically accurate, it's written well, it's beautiful, it's formatted. And then the marketing comes down. Yeah, how do you do that? That's always kind of the question. You're going to have to probably spend some money. You're going to have to, podcasting, by the way, is the best way. There's two ways, I think, in marketing that I've seen successful owning two publishing companies. That is marketing specifically on Amazon, because that is a marketplace where people are. So you spend financial resources there because that's where the buyers are. When you're on Amazon, you're there to buy. So you're in the marketplace. And so you advertise there. Social media is more about creating awareness. Not to say there won't be a direct sale, but it's more about awareness of who you are and what your brand is. And maybe you can drive some people to buy a book, but mainly we've all been on social media. You're kind of doom scrolling or going through it. You're being entertained. You might see an ad for a book, and then you'll just keep moving on. But when someone's on Amazon, they're there to buy, and they're in looking at books, they're to buy a book. So that is where the best place to target monies for advertising. And then I think a really good way of having someone not just brand awareness, but also direct sales, because they get to know you, is doing podcasts like yours. It's podcast tours, specifically longer form conversation like we're having. Really just allows the listener, they understand, like, oh, I like this guy, or I like this person. I like what they're saying. I think I want to pick up their book. Every time I do podcast tour, I see a direct connection between the number of podcasts I do and then the sales increase. I'm already seeing it now. I think I've done like 40 some podcasts in the past month, and you can absolutely see it. So those are the two things I tell the authors I represent. Like, we put money in Amazon and then get on podcasts. Talk about yourself, talk about your books, talk about your expertise, whatever that is.
Just listen what you're saying. And by the way, you listen on Refocused Radio, watching this online, talking to our guest, G. Michael Hoff. Go to his website, gmichaelhoff.com. What I hear you saying is no different back in the day when I was in school. I mean, I'm not old, but I'm 35 on 36 next month. But in my day, right?
That's a good age.
In my day, when we was in school, I went to Washington Technical Middle College, and the dean, he said something that was very profound. And he reminded me just how you illustrated the whole process of how you market yourself and get yourself prepped, and explaining how you get these numbers beyond other podcast shows. It's very strategic. And I want to share that my dean, he said something that was so cool that you remind me of, and that is, in life, you pick up these tools and you collect them and you put them in your toolbox. But if you don't use those tools, if you don't start understanding how they work, then they're just in the toolbox. So I want to say that to make the point that everything you're saying right now, if there's an aspiring author, or there's a established author who just wants to do better in sales or marketing or whatever, they should take what you're saying and actually start doing something about it. It's almost like if you're in art class and everyone knows what it was like back in the day, trying to get that lump of clay, and the art teacher's telling you to make something spectacular. You're inspired by all this great stuff you see in magazines or art history or whatever. You look at your blob of clay and you're like, man, this is going to take a little bit more effort. And that's what I'm hearing from you. It's not about having the perfect vision that you accomplish, but it's more so like I want to track back to what we said in the earlier interview, and that's being the flow state. And I believe the only way you can be in that flow state is that you actually are using these tools that are shaping your vision. Because I feel like a lot of times we get a lot of disappointments, and if we're not careful, we allow that to deter us from what we're trying to accomplish. And what we start doing is making excuses. Well, it wasn't for me. And I guess I just don't understand it. I don't get it. So I'm just going to stay right here and never push forward. You as an entrepreneur, how did you get over those hurdles when you were like, at first, man, I'm not hitting the numbers I want? What did you do to keep yourself focused to be like, okay, well, that's just a seasonal situation. In the next chapter of my entrepreneurship story, this is what I did X, Y, and Z to get over that hump.
Great, another great question. You got some really good questions, and I'll say this: reframing. Everyone's going to go through hardship. Everyone has adversity. It's all relative, whatever that is, but everyone has it. And you're going to encounter it. I don't care what you do, you'll encounter it. I reframe everything that happens in my life as an opportunity. If it's bad, it's now an opportunity that I'm there. I look for the lesson that can be learned in that time, in that moment. And there's also something to be noted too, and that is understanding what failing is and what failure is. So everyone will fail. Failing is present tense. I'm failing. This isn't working. When you give up that's when you become a failure. It's past tense. But everyone fails. And then, what you're at a crossroads at that moment in time. So I'm failing. This isn't working. If you kind of pull back from that, get kind of a 30,000 foot view of it, and like, okay, that's not working. What can I do? Do I keep pushing forward? Do I adjust? What can I learn from this? And then if you come from it with that approach, that mindset, and don't get upset, you will see the answer. The answer will come to you. I trust it now. Like whenever something happens to me, Jocko Willink, the Navy SEAL, he has a book called Extreme Ownership. And it's incredible once you take that ownership over your whole life, by the way. But he talks about anytime something becomes difficult, he just goes, good. He accepts it, like, okay, good. That wasn't working. That clearly is not the way it is, but there's an answer here, and I'm going to find it. And the determination to not quit is then you just try other things. You just kind of navigate. Anyone who's been successful always has headwinds, always hits a roadblock, will have a failure. They'll fall down. Whatever these things happen, they go broke. But yet they get themselves out of it because they don't quit. They keep moving forward. I'll use a military analogy. Is that if you're hitting the beach and you're under heavy fire, the quickest way to not get shot is you have to advance. You have to keep moving forward. If you stay where you are, you're probably going to die on the beach. So the best way not to is to keep moving forward. Just keep going. No matter what, just keep moving forward. But I would simply to tell people, just reframe the situation. Like, okay, there's an opportunity in this bad thing, and I'm going to find it. It's so often when the door closes in your face, so many people find themselves up against the closed door looking at it, and that's all they see. If you step back from the door, you'll see that other doors are open. And then you can start, so you can't focus on the closed door, focus on the other things that might have now appeared in front of you. And you can't see them if you're not looking for them. I know this kind of can get kind of esoteric, but it's an absolute mindset thing and how you think. Like before my first book before it got published, I never thought of failing. I saw myself at book signing books. I would see in like visions, like I would meditate and just see my book, people around the world reading it. And that's all I saw. I only looked at what I wanted to see in my mind, not if it's going to fail. I knew this reality. Of course things are going to happen. I'm going to have bumps in the road, but that's a part of life. And I choose those as opportunities to learn, and then I only look at what I want. And then I just keep moving down the road toward it. And I get a lot of what I see in my mind. It eventually comes. But it does take effort. That's where the discipline comes in. I tell someone the other day, it's like, how does inspiration and motivation can only get you so far, like get you off the blocks. But in order to get to that where you're going, you've got to just suck it up sometimes. And you don't want to do it. I mean, look at the great sports, the athletes we have. If you look at all their stories, there's a similarity that they don't want to get up on early Sunday morning and go hit the gym or go out to the football field. That's the last thing they want to do, but they know they want to be great. They've got to do it. And that takes discipline. This is where discipline is critical. The discipline will pull you out of the funk and get you, because you're looking at the dream of what you want. It's there, it's down the road, but you can get there. And some days you're just not feeling like, you don't want to get out of bed. You want to go hang out with your buddies one night, but nope, you got to go do this first. So discipline plays a big key. Mindset, very big key. Reframing situations, looking at everything as an opportunity, even when it's not. I mean, even when it doesn't appear to be.
And man, we could probably go for another 30 minutes, but I looked at the clock. When you think about value,
we can keep talking. I'm good if you want to have this longer.
Awesome,
I got
because
time.
I want to dive in something real quick, and that is when you think of value. So value is something that cheapness can't ever experience. And what I mean by that is when you have something that's of value, whether this apply anywhere in your life, by the way, not just writing books, just living a quality life in general. Once you completely understand that value comes with certain sacrifice, like it doesn't come with shortcuts. It doesn't come with a secret formula. If I just say this in front of the mirror 10 times, I'm just miraculously going to have all these blessings come in my life. I love what you said throughout the interview, especially in the beginning when you talked about just the consistency of writing, not worrying about it being completely polished and perfect, but just allowing yourself to be in that flow state. And I want to say the flow state is like what I'm saying with value. In order to reach that point, you have to have those underlining trainings and reps and practices and failures, but not completely quitting, but more so, like you said moments ago, reframing the situation and using all the adjustments that you need to in order to, it's training, right? It's in order for you to press into that new territory that you are not even used to. What do you think about that, values and sacrifices, and how that plays a role in the person elevating?
Oh yeah, well, because they're, and that's another thing I would like. Yeah, there are sacrifices, but then you can even reframe that to make that, is it a sacrifice or is it an investment, right? We can take the word and reframe it, redefine it. Because sometimes people are like, I don't want to sacrifice this. I want to go hang and party with my guys, or I want to go do this. I'm sacrificing. But what if you sat back and go, I'm investing because I love myself. I love my dream. I know what I want to do. And I'm going to take this block of time and I'm investing it forward to my dreams. I'm paying myself, my future self, with my time today. I agree with you. So you're right. It's some people who say it's sacrifice. I look at it with a reframed definition that it's an investment. And some people don't want that because do you know how important things are from a value standpoint, or what you're willing to do for it? How much do you value it, right? I see people all the time because it's amazing. I have some friends that are incredibly wealthy. Yet we'll go out somewhere and they're like, I'm not buying that guacamole. It's $5. I'm like, bro, that's like 5 cents for you. Like that's nothing. But their value system is like that. The $5 guacamole is too much, but they're going to go buy the Bentley. Okay. Right. That's just the value system that they have. And so I never judge that. I never judge. Because that's a subjective thing, right? But the concept of like anything, like there's nothing that just comes. Like when people talk about manifestation, and you were talking about like looking in the mirror and saying positive affirmations, what's on the other side of that is action. It requires you to act. and to move. You may not even know the direction you're going, but I do know it's like you're on the beach. You just got to move forward. That's the whole thing. You don't know where you're going to get to that bridge of incident. But you see, you have an idea where you want to go. You may not even see the goal, but you just have to see it in your mind. You just got to keep moving forward, and knowing that you're going to have bumps in the road, knowing you're going to have these things, and so you've already accepted that. Like, this is it, but you reframe it. But there are opportunities to learn, to grow, to become whatever you're doing. Like, this is part of the process that I need in order to build the character, in order to build the expertise, in order to build the confidence. But nothing ever comes from not doing anything. From like the part of the action is key. Like, when you look at someone that's got a great body, they're really fit. Well, that doesn't come from a pill. That comes from discipline and like consistent labor that they do every single day. And then you take that consistent labor over 3 months, 6 months, they're a completely different person. Their body's changed. Same thing with the mind. And by the way, I believe when you're talking about the mind, we have to exercise our mind as much as we exercise our bodies. I believe in meditation. I meditate twice a day, one in the morning and once in the evening. And it's invaluable to quiet my mind and just be present. So many answers come to me. It enables me to control my emotional state much better than when I was a young man. I was a little bit of a hothead when I was a Marine, but we need to exercise. I call it the trifecta. Exercise our body, our mind, and our soul. And once we get all those in kind of a harmonious balance, it's amazing all the beautiful things and opportunities that open up before us.
Man, this was great. This was great. Once again, listen, I'm Refocused Radio, watching us online, talking to our guest, G. Michael Hoff. Go to his website, gmichaelhoff.com. Last thing I want to say, just to wrap this up and make it full circle, is when you look at life lessons, life teaches us a lot if we're open to listen and be aware of what it's teaching. I love what you said about just not thinking about the good statements and visions, or if you will, if you make these affirmations, but it is about what you actually are going to do about it. It makes me think of, if you really have a good value system or something, you are going to look at it as an investment versus a burden and sacrifice. Because yes, life can get heavy, but where are you tracking like your next steps? Because if someone gifted you a nice car, are you going to be the person that just drives it and drives it and drives it until it needs maintenance? Or are you going to be the person that's going to maintain it? Because there's a big difference between just going through life versus I'm going to maintain what I've been given. Because last time I'm going to say, I'm going to throw it to you, is we get used to others investing in us. And if we're not careful, we become too dependent on those investments, and we never have to invest on our own. So I want to get your thoughts on that as we wrap up, because I feel like that will wrap up everything in full circle over it.
The good point. I just came back from a wedding. This will kind of tie into that. I just came back from a wedding back east, and they were giving their vows, and they were talking about, these aren't like someone who this other person makes them complete. These are two whole people entering into and then creating something separate, the relationship. And then that ties into kind of my core belief in that we have to be whole people. And you can't feel entitled that you have to get things from people in order for you to do stuff. I'm a believer in self-reliance. As far as you have to be prepared and when you're succeeding or going out in life, that you have to do things on your own. People there to assist you, it's a gift, but it should never be an expectation. When you do something intentionally to help people, you should never do it with the intention that they have to give back. You just give. And the things I think it's important to strive for is to be whole and complete in yourself. And then from that basis, that strong foundation, then you can build many great things. You can build family from it. Relationship comes from that whole foundation of you being whole and complete. I hope that answered that question. But yeah, it's we have to find the way to be complete by ourselves and not rely on anybody else.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with our audience and our viewers. Once again, if you're listening, you're watching on Refocused Radio and watching us online, talk to our guest, G. Michael Hoff. Go to his website, check out all his books. Like I said, over 40 plus, you will not get bored. You have nothing but time. Especially if school's out, this might be a great time to go shopping and get some books. So, you know, your kids can stay sharp during the summer. So once again, his website, gmichaelhoff.com. Like I always want to say to our guests, like every time we talk to our guests, thank you for your time. And I just hit a blooper, but that's okay. Like always, man, thank you for what you do, man.
No, thank you. It was an honor.